following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
Hello and welcome to another edition of our program, CHW in Action. CHW, as always, stands for Community Health Worker. My name is Rafael Calderon. I'm your community health worker. And in action, because I'm always in action, trying to bring you, the community of Nashua, information about news situations, news, anything that has to do with health education. And of course, I always try to bring interesting people to the show so that we can all learn more. And today I invited a nice lady, great lady, very fascinating lady, and you guys will see. She and I had a conversation, and I said, I had to have you on my TV show. And she's here with us today. Her name is Aimee. So let's say welcome. Welcome, Aimee.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining
us.
us.
Wonderful to be here. Wonderful.
Thank you. It feels nice.
It does. It's very gentle here.
See? So now, Aimee, tell us about yourself, who you are, what you do.
Well, there's a list.
Okay.
I had a near-death experience back in 1980. As a result of that, I actually started to do hands-on work with people, and then I was introduced to working with psychiatrists and psychologists to work with their clients. So they actually sent me their clients, and I would do the work that would help to shift a plateaued situation for the client. Then as a remote viewer, which I also am, they would ask me to take a look at their bigger client base and help them facilitate, change the therapeutic process so that they could go into it easier. Since then, I've had several experiences, another near-death experience. My youngest daughter actually died in my arms.
Sorry to hear.
From cancer, so I've actually started a not-for-profit around education. I've just moved into Nashua now here to be closer to my daughter and granddaughter.
Welcome to Nashua.
Thank you. It's a very sweet town. And then I do hands-on work. I do readings. I see. I hear. And I've worked with medicine people. I've worked with spiritual leaders and elders around the country. And they call on me, actually, for information and assistance.
Very nice. See, we have a lot to talk about. And I think what you do is so fascinating that I got your questions here with me. I'm going to ask you specific questions.
Yes.
So we can get your message across nice and clear.
Absolutely.
Okay? So the first question is, how did you get into the healing work?
Well, it had to start because when I had the near-death experience, I ended up in a hospital in Denver. I was horseback riding, and it wasn't Denver, it was Colorado Springs. And I had been in an accident horseback riding, and I shattered my forearm.
Oof.
And took 2.5 hours to get me to the hospital. I spent 4 days there, and I heard and saw things that other people don't hear and see. And I knew that the medications that they wanted to give me would dull my energy field, my energy bodies. And I decided to not take medications.
So you endured the pain so that you could have the experiences?
Well, I had been trained already as a hypnotherapist, so I used hypnosis to shift my pain level down. And I was able to work with that, and I stopped all medications after about 10 days. My arm was in a cast from my fingertips to my shoulder, and I had a rod that went through one arm, and I still have the plate on the other one.
Wow.
And, you know, it's a way of dealing with energy systems that most people don't understand. And as a result of that, I haven't had any prescription medication since 1980.
Wow. Okay, so now you know how to get into that, what you do. Now, please tell us about the work that you do.
Well, because of that, because of the near-death experience, because I can see and feel and hear energy systems around people, I needed to do something with it. So I actually moved into doing psychic readings and intuitive readings. I've worked with attorneys, I've worked with police departments, I've worked with psychiatrists and psychologists, certainly. I've worked and taught children, sensitive children, how to be aware of seeing and feeling and knowing and working with energy systems.
How do you mean by sensitive children?
There are children that, and I have a family full of children, my nieces and nephews, see and hear other things that people don't normally see and hear. And it seems to run in my family. But I have nieces and nephews that always will see your guidance, for instance, or will see something around that potentially would be disturbing. So kids that see that, when they are surrounded by adults that don't see it, have a very difficult time inside of their lives. I actually had done, just as a human being, I had actually worked with a facility in Colorado Springs that dealt with children that had been taken away from their families by the court systems because of abuse. Two of the children, relatively small, 7, 8, 9 age range, could see energy fields. And what happened was we were required in the daily log to record what the kids said. And so when I came on shift, they would look at me and say, oh, you're blue and green, or you're gray and brown. And I was writing that down. And when I figured out that the psychiatrists were using that as a baseline to see how off these kids were and then adjusting their medication, I brought in the photography that I had done, the auric field photography at that point in time.
You take photography so you can see things?
I did at that point in time. I brought in my own, and I spread it out on the table in the meeting that all of us had every week. And I said, just because you don't see it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It exists. And you're basing medication, you're drugging these children based on essentially your ignorance of something that is a fact in their lives. So I was fired 2 weeks later. They found another reason to do that, but you know, I was certainly not going to be welcome there if I was going to be challenging everything, because I didn't have any initials behind my name.
I see.
But I had the photography that showed that this is an actual reality. So they couldn't deal with the mix on that one.
Some people are afraid of reality. They're afraid of change and things that they cannot.
Yes. Yes, 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 of course. And unfortunately, in the United States, we have an entire medical system that is based, unfortunately, on an awful lot of drug use. And the MDs are not particularly trained. There's new fields out there of energetic medicines. And I was part of that when I became part of the National Institutes of Health panel for alternative medicines. Biofeedback or acupuncture or Chinese herbal therapies or homeopathy or any number of practices that work in subtle energetic fields rather than the coarse, mundane field that we feel is the only thing that there is here, because it's certainly not.
Yeah, and we will talk about that. I'm very interested in learning more about that. See, I'm the point. So, time for another question.
Sure.
How long have you been doing this work, and what have you seen for results?
Well, since 1980. As far as results go, pretty much every single time I touch someone with the work that it is that I do, if they've got a skeletal imbalance, I would have to say 80 to 90% of the time, that skeletal imbalance is going to change. I've had 59-degree scoliosis, shift, change, straighten, and stabilize under my hands.
Wow.
I have had kyphosis, which is also skeletal, spinal, and I've seen that shift in a pair of young boys that were in their early teens. I've seen birth defects fall away on the table. I have seen jaw misalignments rearrange themselves.
You have seen these things?
Yes, I've had them happen under my hands. So, you know, when you've had that happen and there has been no drug intervention, there has been no any other styles of surgical interventions or anything like that. That's an energetic. And the work that I do essentially is recognized as being the blueprint for the human being.
Wow.
Everyone, everything that exists has an initial blueprint. Oak trees all look the same. Willows all look the same. Blue whales all look the same. You know, there are minor differences that can categorize this one is alpha, this one is beta, you know, fin shifts or that kind of thing. But human beings, all of us have 2 arms, 2 legs, 2 eyes, hopefully 1 head. And that's the standardization of who it is that we are. So working with the energetics of the standard then allows the shifts and the changes that have become diffused through the process of life. Scoliosis typically doesn't start at birth. Scoliosis starts in towards adolescence.
And what is scoliosis?
It's a curvature of the spine.
Okay.
So the woman that I've got several testimonials on my website, but the one that I use typically is a double curve scoliosis, 59 degrees. And at that point in time, when I worked on her, her scoliosis disappeared inside of 2 sessions.
Wow.
Her height changed a good 1.5 inches and potentially more than that. And that's been constant every time that I've worked with something along those lines.
Very interesting. Fascinating.
And it's
stuff.
just energy. It's
Wow.
just energy. It's who you are and who you were to have been without the changes that happened in your life that shifted you away.
I'm going to want to know about my energy because I want to believe that it's good energy. Okay?
Oh, it's very good energy.
It is very good. Okay. Okay. Now I feel better. Okay.
Excellent. Anything that I can do.
Oh. See, I'm going to become your client now.
All right.
So time for another question. This I'm having fun. I mean, this is fun stuff. How did you become a patient advocate for alternative medicines?
Longer story there. My youngest daughter was diagnosed with a very rare form of cancer. We had lived in the vicinity of a hazardous waste dump in Massachusetts called the Nyanza dump site. We had moved in the meantime, so we were in Colorado when she was actually diagnosed with the cancer. I moved into the hospital directly with her. There had been 13 children in the past, I don't know, maybe 5 years with this particular kind of cancer. So they had no experience with success. They had nothing. They gave us less than a 10% chance of her life. And so when they started the chemo, she went into a bleed out event because the chemo was so harsh. So I ended up calling an acupuncturist in the state of Colorado. I didn't realize at the time that he was the president of the Acupuncture Association. He put together a team of 3 acupuncturists that worked together for my daughter for the entire time that we were still in Colorado. One of the acupuncturists was actually, she had been the director of a clinic in Saigon for 15 years. So I saw miracles happen. She would have an acupuncture session after a bleeding, and 2 days later she'd be horseback riding, released out of the hospital.
Wow.
So acupuncture at that point in time, and I didn't have an awful lot of information on it, was only legal in 13 states. After my daughter passed, a TV person back east found out about me. I was still in Colorado. And she let me know that the National Institutes of Health was putting together a workshop or a talk day that they were discussing alternative health care.
Okay.
I got on the phone. I called every single center that I could find in the United States. I called every center that they could find. There was an $1,800 phone bill at the end of 2 months.
That's a big bill.
The talk in DC went from what they expected to be 3 hours to 3.5 days.
Wow.
People were coming in from all over the United States saying, Aimee told me that I needed to be here. And each one of them gave a testimony in front of people at the National Institutes of Health. And because I had helped to organize that, what happened was they immediately pulled me in as a consultant. So they had to recognize me somehow, and I don't still have any initials behind my name. I'm a layperson that has had extraordinary experiences.
Okay.
And they had to do something with me. So they called me a patient advocate.
Uh-huh.
So what happens is that I've had people call me that have had health challenges that are being told legally what needs to be done. And in one case, a pair of parents had been told that their brand new baby was going to be taken away from them because she was born with a tumor between her vagina and rectum. And she was terminal as far as the AMA was concerned. Mm-hmm. They wanted to be able to take her home so that she could die there. The oncologist literally said, I will go to court and get custody of this child. I will take this child, and you won't have any say in the treatment.
Wow.
So they called me. And I just happened to know that there was a new program in New York City. Mm-hmm. And I said, you take the child for a second consult because that's legally available to you. The man that I was directing them to was an MD homeopath acupuncturist. And I said, let them have the firefight, the two MDs. Mm-hmm. You take the kid home. In the second consult, they had done a second biopsy, and they found the child had never had cancer.
Wow.
But she had been given chemotherapy at under 6 weeks old. So I get called on mm-hmm. things like that. And I can come up with potentially alternatives, maybe practitioners if I've been in the area for any real length of time. Mm-hmm. But I am a patient advocate, so I help to educate people around the potentials that they can use that would be drug-free and non-invasive.
Wow.
So there you go. That's how I'm a patient advocate.
Thank you for answering that question.
Very welcome.
Now, time for another one. Okay, so you have a not-for-profit called Love Rising.
Yes, I do.
Could you tell me about that?
Well, that's the educational position that I decided to come up with. And I have the website up, which is loverising.info, if anybody wants to connect in with it. I'm really just beginning the process now of getting it out there. I've held the space on it for quite some time. And it's 12 different topics of information where people could do their own research and then come to a different kind of a conclusion or evolve themselves in a different way. Not just about healthcare, but about art, about economics, about legal structures, about global positioning. Mm-hmm. One of my dearest friends is on boards at the United Nations. Okay. So globally, he's familiar with things that are happening mm-hmm. from that standpoint, and communication bases where people want to find out what's going on in South America around, or in Europe around, or at this point in time now Cuba, mm-hmm. around what's happening in the healthcare situation in Cuba, where they have been forced to stay stagnant and without the AMA's participation. Mm-hmm. So something like sickle cell anemia is a constant in Cuba. And they've developed ways to be able to work with it so that it's maintained mm-hmm. and it's not fatal. Here in the United States, it's fatal.
Interesting.
There's a lot out there. So I'm trying to cover as much ground as I can from an educational base. And mm-hmm. certainly I've got a team, but it's not full yet. And I'm looking forward to being able to bring more people on board.
I'm looking forward to see what you do when it all comes together.
Oh, plan on it.
Now, how can people reach you?
My phone number, and
okay.
it's constant. I don't know if it's up yet, but it's
mm-hmm.
978-793-3822.
Okay.
My website that's going to be on here mm-hmm. is elighten.org, ELIGHTEN.org. And I have a book.
You have a book?
I have a book.
Well, tell us a little bit about that book.
Oh, it's fun to write. I actually
What's
have
the name of it?
Facts Are Beliefs
Okay.
Made Solid.
Facts Are Beliefs Made Solid. Interesting.
Right. And it's about
okay.
the process of me becoming aware from the near-death experience, mm-hmm. how people functioned. because they didn't necessarily function the same way that I do. And there's actually a 24-page glossary inside of the back of the book where I had to define for myself how things work or don't work. And I would chase people around with a dictionary saying, what you just said is not in your field.
I'm sure you made a lot of friends doing that.
Well, it's been an interesting path, truly.
Wow. Okay, so let me ask you a last question, and then I want to know a little more about energies.
Sure.
Okay. So I understand that you are now working at a local center. Could you tell me where it is and what sort of services they do have?
Sure. It's a HIPAA-recognized center. The name of it is the Holistic Self-Care Center. It's on 12 Murphy Drive.
Okay.
There are 30 practitioners from a variety of modalities. We have an acupuncturist. I believe we have a biofeedback. I know that we have there are all kinds of massage people there. A naturopath is there, PhD, dowsers. There are a variety of people, and they are all working with individuals. So their client bases are people that have serious health issues in a lot of cases. The woman that owns the center has been in the field herself for many, many years and has had personal experience with ALS. So she is...
What is ALS?
Yeah, you're not going to ask me that, are you?
I'll take it back. I'll take it back.
Okay, thank you. I'm just familiar with the terms.
Okay.
I've not had a client like that.
All right.
So, but she has done work with particular individuals for extensive periods of time and have lengthened their lifespans from that. So there's a variety of individuals with a variety of training up at this particular small center. And it's actually this center, the way that it's organized and the way that it's run is the first that I've seen in the United States set like this, which is very, very impressive.
And it's here in lovely Nashua.
It is. It
Okay.
totally is. And I can do work there.
Beautiful.
Yep.
Now, I'm done with your questions, very interesting questions. And I wanted to make sure I covered them, okay?
Thank
Before
you.
I ask you the magical question.
Okay.
So energy is energy channeled through you? Do you channel energy? You said,
Oh, you're going to love this.
see, I really am. I'm excited just wanting to hear. Because things have happened under your hands with your
Yes.
touch. So you are transferring, or energy is being transferred to you, to the people you're working with.
No.
No, tell me, enlighten me.
Prior to your physical existence, there is the spark of God, Creator.
Okay,
Your soul chose to come in as a physical human.
okay,
Your soul chose to come in as a male with very specific genetic tendencies, and that's the blueprint. Okay? When I work with energy in this particular capacity, I'm not channeling anything. You're the channel.
okay,
So what I'm doing is calling through your tissue, your original intention to be physical.
okay,
That may not have anything to do with scoliosis. Scoliosis is an adaptation.
okay,
Okay? Birth defects, not so much. Birth defects could be a nutrition from the mother, okay, which don't need to be there.
okay,
Okay? So what I'm doing is I'm calling the individual, so the client, I'm calling through their tissue to me. So you're the channel.
okay.
I just know how to do it.
All right,
I'm a tech. Okay? I'm a technician. I am able to hear and see where there may be chaos in the system. With their energy, that can shift.
see, that's what I find interesting is how do you, because I've listened to a lot of people that have talked about this. This is why I believe everything that you're telling me. And they basically, they're born with something or something comes to them and then they become this vessel. So that's why I'm interested in.
Well, we all have the same capacity. Many people turn to that in times of crisis. You know, whether it's faith, whether it's a traditional teacher, whether they have a mantra, whether they do whatever it is, we all know that there's a higher source.
Okay.
Okay? So by calling on the higher source, what happens is many times things can change. When they don't change, like scoliosis, okay, there's a misunderstanding inside of the original intention of that person to be here. It's like, and I talk about energetic architecture. So we're all built the same way. We're all either male or female. There are some other, you know, trans, but, and that's not a mistake, because everything that comes in with intention.
Okay.
Some of it may not be understood, and that's what I call an adaptation. So scoliosis is an adaptation. There's a misunderstanding of energy there. So when you call in clarity rather than chaos, it can go away.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'm not putting anything into someone. I don't want somebody to do that to me either.
Right.
Okay? But if you have the ability to call it forward through yourself, that's the best way of healing.
Okay.
It's totally the best way of healing.
I can imagine. I mean, I would love to see one of these transformations take place before your eyes, before my eyes, under your hands.
Oh, it's fabulous. It's fabulous. When I have somebody get up off the table and they're 1.5 inches or 2 inches taller, or they can bend over and stretch.
Can you make me taller? Because I mean, I'm happy the way that I am. Okay, but
I haven't made myself taller yet.
You know, I want to be better at basketball. You know, so if I were taller, who knows?
Who knows?
Wow.
Pretty much 60% of the people that get on the table get up a little bit taller.
Interesting.
Yeah, a little bit, you know, because it's the gravity thing, and, you know, we accept conditions in our lives that we don't have to accept.
You know, this is in fact, I'm going to invite you to come back.
Okay.
That's a very good subject that I want to touch on, and we're almost out of time. So I want to tell you in closing, is there any message that you would like to send to the community of Nashua?
Just please be aware that there are choices out there. Please be open to the choices. We're not locked into the box that said it has to be this way. You know, I hit a tree at a full gallop, and I became aware of a lot of the choices that were in front of me that I hadn't seen before. And in taking advantage of those choices, we can change the dynamic relationship of not just ourselves, but our environment. Not just ourselves and our environment, but our region, or our town, or our country. And we're coming into a time that says there's a lot of choices to be made here. And please, please bring the choices in that bring in light and awareness.
Thank you. Light and awareness is always best. Thank you so much for coming to the show. And
Very
I
welcome.
truly believe in energy too. No, and sincerely. So I'm glad that you came to my show. Thank you for
very
coming.
much.
Please come back.
It's been wonderful, and yes, I will.
Okay.
Of course.
And thank you, the audience, for giving us of your time. As you can see, this lady is very fascinating, and she talks about very fascinating things. So please follow up with her. Check out her website. You will get all her information at the end of this program. Checking with her. Very interesting. All this stuff is real. All this stuff is good. Okay, so with that, I tell you, thank you for your time again. Your CHW, Rafael Calderon. May God bless you.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.